my mood has changed so much on the slim designs when you start talking about silicon battery tech. I've kind of turned into like, no, make the phones slimmer. Welcome to the Android Police podcast for March, I don't know, we're recording on March 6th. Whenever you're listening to this, March 9th. It's probably an hour later than it usually is for you, actually, if it's March 9th. Congratulations to everyone celebrating daylight saving time. I'll be enjoying it because I'm tired of the sun setting at 6 o'clock. Not enjoying it because he lives in England is James Peckham, our special guest today. Welcome, James.
Yeah. I have to wait like 3 more weeks for daylight savings. It's a weird balance this year.
I felt like it was like when I warned you this week, I was like, or last week, whenever it was, I was like, this feels like really late for you guys. Like I feel like it's normally like only a couple weeks and it's like an entire month basically this time.
It's usually 2 weeks, but something's weird. Something weird's
strange.
happening there. You only ever notice when you work with people across the Atlantic Ocean that there's a difference.
Yeah. James is, of course, the editor-in-chief of Android Police, if people don't know that, but you've been on enough that I feel like people probably know that. Daniel Bader was going to join us. He is out sick today, so we wish him all the best. I'm sure he's already feeling better by the time this releases. But James, you were at Mobile World Congress, which is the whole reason we were going to have you on to begin with, because I skipped this year. I said, no, James, I'm not going, and you can't fire me for it, I think was my exact quote, and certainly wasn't for any other reason.
And I tried, but I wasn't able to do it.
And I was right. He couldn't fire me for it. How was Mobile World Congress?
It was good, thank you. It was my 9th. It's I'm about to hit double digits next year.
Well, yeah, you have to go next year now. It's not...
I have to, right?
Yeah, you have to go one more time. You can't leave it at 9.
Yeah, maybe this is just because it was my 9th, but it felt like everyone was reminiscing about the old MWC this year. Everyone I spoke to, whether it was other journalists at the show, whether it was PR people from different brands, whether it was like execs from brands, anyone, everyone was talking about the shows of 2014, the shows of 2015, the Galaxy S series being there, the HTC One M8 launching there, like all of these sorts of like historical elements. I think that's maybe a reflection of where the show is in 2025. It is now not dissimilar to CES of it being cool, weird stuff. There's still a lot there to see, but in terms of actual phones you're going to buy, they are few and far between there at the moment. So yeah, the show was really good, but I would say it is less the big event that it used to be for people who want to buy a new phone, and more of concepts, more interesting stuff in that sort of way, more of a like tone setting for the rest of the year rather than actual clear product releases.
Did it feel like physically smaller, or does it still feel as big as ever?
And in fact, physically, it was bigger.
Wow.
It was their biggest year post-COVID. So
wow, okay, because I think last year was also their big. I feel like both of the years I have gone, it's been like, oh, like it's a comeback. Oh, it's a comeback. So 3 years in a row is great.
Yeah, don't call it a comeback. It is now the third. It's the third comeback. It is. The show in 2020 was the first major tech conference to be cancelled because of the pandemic. Right. And then the 2021 show happened, but it happened online, and it didn't really no one. I think there was a very, very small event, if I remember rightly, but no one was really there. So yeah, it's built its momentum back up again since then, and there was a lot of like the marketing elements around from the GSMA and MWC itself, talking about how the show was the biggest it had been since COVID in that way. So the actual show was much busier. Lots and lots. People just love standing in the middle of the walkways. That is the real thing for MWC.
Oh my God.
It's so hard to get around,
and it's so much worse than CES. It truly is. I don't know why, because they're very similar shows in terms of like you walking around big crowds, but for whatever reason, both of the times I've been on the show floor of MWC, by day 2 of the show floor, so it's probably like the 3rd or 4th day I'm there, but second day on the show floor, it's after lunch, I'm just pushing people out of the way at this point. Like I really do lose my patience in what is probably a very American way of being like, why are you in the middle of my pathway? I'm trying to get to an appointment and you have just suddenly stopped in front of me. What are you doing?
Yeah, I think the vast majority of people that are at that show are wandering. Like we're the people that are like running between booths, and we're trying to get everywhere as quickly as we possibly can. But I think most people that go to that show is a lot of people from telecom companies and different elements like that. They're there to just wander and find new technologies and just play with new devices and all of that and all of those sort of elements. So yeah, they're happy to do that, and they're happy to like meander while we're like no, we need to be at a briefing within 2 minutes. And
I gotta go talk to Samsung or whoever. Like, get out of my way. Like, I have stuff to do, and then I have to go right afterwards. So yeah, it's like there's no time to waste, and it is not the vibe of the show floor though. The vibe of the show floor is like, oh, let's walk around and see what we can find at every booth. It is interesting in that way.
Yeah. They're excited to see like the robot dogs and stuff, and while we're just like
everyone's always excited to see the robot dogs and pay no attention to the guy clearly in the corner controlling the robot dogs. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what he's doing. James, before we get into kind of today's topics, we're going to talk a lot about Google. We're going to talk a bit about Samsung, some leaks. YouTube Premium Lite is here. I think people will be excited about that. We're going to do a game throughout this episode that will delight video watchers and frustrate audio listeners. Sorry, guys, but yeah, we're going to pull. So Google every year makes a collection of pins that you can find at not just their booth, but booths across the entire conference. And you have all of them.
I have all of them.
Randomly pull out a pin out of the bag and see what we get. And you can tell me a little bit behind it.
Yeah, for the first year ever, I've seen all of them. That's just wild in that way. So yeah, there's about, I think I've got like 80 or so here in this little bag. I don't actually know what the final number is. I'll count them up after the show and show you. The first one I'm pulling out here is, oh my god, it's a snakes and ladder one. It's a little snakes and ladder guy.
Oh, that's adorable. So it's a plaid bug droid covered in snakes and ladders. That's adorable.
So these change every year at the show. Like they come up with these brand new designs. It just blows my mind how they do that every single show. And I've only ever picked up like 3 or 4 at a time. So having an entire bag of them is
that's nuts.
Is fun.
Yeah, no, I both years I've come back with like a few. If I see them, I'll grab them. But I've never gone. I know Ben Schoen at 9 to 5 Google has always made a point to go out of his way to hit all the booths. Which is probably another reason why all the journalists are always running around and pushing people out of the way. Need to go get those Google pins. James, you had a really big Mobile World Congress, I would say. I am impressed by how much you did, especially considering that like this is the fewest people Android Police has sent since I've started working here, not counting. Well, no, I started working here after the 2021 show. So yeah, so it's kind of crazy. But yeah, tell me a little bit about your conversations with Google. I think we should start there.
Yeah, Mobile World Congress has never really been the biggest show for Google. They've always had a presence, obviously. Yeah. They always want to be there. In particular, Android is there rather than Google. They make a huge deal of that. In the middle of the show, between the best halls at the show for tech journalists anyway, they have something called Android Avenue, which you've probably seen us write about before. You've seen our rival sites like 9 to 5 and those sort of people cover it quite a lot. And it's usually a long strip where they have a bunch of different demos around the different technologies. This year, it was Gemini everywhere at this Android Avenue. There was barely anything else that wasn't Gemini, but that's where Android is at the moment. And we usually run up and down this thing and go look at it and go and talk about it. So Android is usually at the show, but never in like a huge way. We get a few small announcements. We'll talk about some of those in a moment. But I had the opportunity to sit down with Sameer Samat from Google for the first time, and you can read my interview coverage with him on the site at the moment. If you head to the homepage, it will probably be on the homepage at that stage. If not, Google Android Police, head of Android, something like that, and you'll be able to find it. We chatted for the full half hour. We were mostly talking around Gemini and the introduction of Gemini across Android over the last 15 months or so. It's not even been 2 years yet of Gemini on Android, but it's we've been talking. Talking a lot about
barely been. Bard was renamed to Gemini last February, so it's been like 13 months. That's crazy.
And isn't it strange that I do think they've done very well actually for renaming that brand? Like no one really remembers Bard anymore. Obviously we do,
agree.
But I would say as like in the culture, I think it has been a very good rebrand in that way. Considering
I don't think anyone used Bard. Like
it,
not regular people. They kind of kept it covered. They certainly didn't advertise it. Like Gemini is all over every football game. I assume both footballs. American and other.
American
James, you
another.
come on, and I'm just gonna talk shit about that's. Is that not what America is now? That's what I've been reading the news, and apparently we just talk all sorts of shit. Jules, cut that. I don't know. Or leave it in. I don't care. Everything's bad. I feel like if people know about Gen AI chatbots, it is ChatGPT first and foremost, and then Gemini, and kind of nothing else. It's kind of just those two. And yeah, it has been in part because of like a huge marketing blitz from Google, but also because you're right, they have launched a lot in just 13 months. I mean, even if you go back to when like the first Gemini branded LLM launched, that was December of 2023. So it's not, you add a couple more months, it's not that much. So
yeah, we were talking about it specifically from an Android context, and so Sameer Samat is the president of the Android ecosystem, so he's the head of Android essentially. And we were talking through a bunch of different elements. We talked, I'll get onto a bit more on Android 16 and those sort of bits in a moment, but the Gemini elements were the biggest thing. And we were talking about how it's just rolled out across the entire platform, talking about how Google is better placed than pretty much like than ChatGPT or anyone in that way to get across an entire device platform. It can integrate within Android, it can integrate within all of the Google applications, and it gives it a really unique position compared to anyone else. Like if you're a Perplexity user, you're not going to get that same sort of experience from your AI elements than you would if you were using Gemini. So we spoke about that quite a lot. We spoke about his usage of it, which was quite fun. His main thing, you can read about this in my interview with him, but his main thing he's been doing with it is he's a big history buff and he watches a lot of long form YouTube documentaries about history. So he'll ask for a summary before he starts that video, and then he will go through to the bits that he wants to. He's a very busy man. He doesn't want to be watching all of this long form content, so he's then jumping around videos. And he said he pretty much is always then watching the full thing, but he's then able to interact with it in a better way for him by being able to jump around this video.
That's a fascinating look into, because a lot of times, not all of these AI features are necessarily fall victim to this, but a lot of times I will look at an announcement or a demo, and Google is particularly bad at this, I think, where I look at their demo and I go, wait, who is this for? Like, what parent is going to do this with their kid? Or like Amazon, it was very similar with Amazon and their Alexa event a week ago, where I was like reading through the demos they were showing on stage, using The Verge's live blog, I think, and being like, I don't fully understand who this is for. And it is when you talk to like the execs or project leaders at this company, and I don't mean this in a mean way or a negative way, but it does like start to make sense where you're like, oh, you just lead a very different life than I do. Yes. And therefore, a lot of the products or tasks that you're trying to automate with AI end up feeling almost alien to me, where I'm like, well, wait, why would I want a YouTube video summary? I want to watch the YouTube video. I'm not saying I'm right or Sameer's like, no one is right. Like, you can digest the YouTube video how you want to digest it, but it is interesting when you get that insight of like, oh, okay, at least I understand where like something like YouTube summaries are coming from, because that might not be a feature that I can see myself using, but like it certainly fills a part of someone else's life.
The example I always use for this, I can't remember which version of iOS it was, but I remember when, WatchOS. I remember when the Apple Watch first got flight QR codes for the Apple Watch, for example. And I remember watching that, and they spent about 10 minutes of whatever launch event it was talking about these things. And I remember being like, the average person is not going to be using that. They're going to have their iPhone on them anyway. They're going to have a phone on them anyway. They're probably also going to print their boarding pass at home, because most people fly once or twice a year maximum, and they're never really going to use that. And then I realized, oh, it's because of execs. Like, execs are flying all of the time, and they always want that quick hit of being able to get to their boarding pass in that way. We fly a lot, and I wouldn't really find that all that helpful to have it on my watch when it's already on my phone. So it's one of those things that there is always sometimes a bit of a disconnect between execs who are like focusing on these elements and then the average person, I think.
And not to linger in this example, but I've never done that because I feel like I would look like such a tool. And I don't mean any disrespect to anyone who uses it, but it just like, it feels very showy in a way that like the earlier days of mobile payments, like when you would pull out your phone to tap to pay in the US, it was like a gamble that it would work, and then you look like a jerk for holding up the line or whatever, and you still have to pull out your wallet and everything. And it's like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you showing off that you have this watch? Like, just pull out your phone like everybody else. That has always been my take on it, where it's like, yeah, it's there, I see it, but I'm not going to hold my wrist out to the person at the desk, like the attendant at the desk. Like, that would feel so weird.
Yeah,
and
they're gonna
yeah, to
find
your
it
point,
strange. Yeah.
yeah. And to your point that people only fly like, once or twice a year at most. It's like, yeah, they're too stressed out about everything happening around them, versus you and I who are like, yeah, I'm getting on a bus. The bus just happens to go in the air. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, read my full interview for the full Gemini elements with my chat with Sameer. We also spoke about a bunch of different elements as well. We had a really good chat about Android 16. Android 16 is coming earlier than ever this year. It's coming earlier in the year than most launches. I think the last time we saw an Android version launch this early in the year was something like 2014 or so. So it's been a long, long time. Often you see an Android release from August onwards, and last year we saw it in October, and a few years before that we saw it in September. Android 16 is coming earlier, coming in June. We sort of knew some of these elements anyway, but we were talking about it in a bit more depth with Sameer. It's down to a new process within the Android team that they're using called trunk stable development, which essentially allows all of the devs to work together in one trunk. Their projects are coming together all in one place on a much more regular basis. So usually what they were doing was they were making that process happen in June, and then they were spending the next 3 months or so then hitting all the bugs, going through and getting rid of all of the challenges and all of those sort of elements over that next 3-month period. They've been able to do that during the process this year, and the focus is now that they think they're going to be able to get that out in June. We knew all of this already. This is something that Google spoke about when it first announced Android 16 earlier in the year, and Sameer confirmed to me they are still on track to hit that deadline of June. He was honest. He was saying that pretty much any time of the Android development process, they're finding there are too many bugs than they actually want in there, but he thinks they're going to be on track to hit it. So that was good to hear, because this is a huge change for Android in that way, and it's going to be, hopefully, I would imagine we're going to hear something at Google I/O for an actual release date.
I was just about to say, one of Sameer's quotes to you was that they're planning to do more to highlight what's in Android 16 this year, and we have not seen that. And I don't just mean from Google's messaging, but I mean from the beta releases. Like, the actual beta builds have felt virtually indistinguishable from a user-facing perspective to Android 15. There are obviously, the Mashals of the world are digging around and finding all sorts of like hidden things, but in terms of like, we're on beta 2.1, and it's like, this feels like the experience I had when the Pixel 9 launched last August for the most part. Like, it does not feel like a lot has changed. So yeah, I do wonder if, IO, which I think I had originally, and I might have even done it on the show, that I had originally floated the idea that this was an IO shadow drop for Android 16, and your, June confirmation, for lack of a better word, makes me think that no, IO is where they show it off. Maybe one final beta drops at IO. We'll see you next month for the full build. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
I spoke to Sameer, like, on a similar note to what you're saying there, where I essentially said to Sameer, are we now at a point where the major OS updates aren't as important? Like, is it now at a stage where we don't really need a numbered version? Could Google ever move to a model where they decided to even drop numbered versions and then just be a more consistent update? We see something every 3 months or something like that.
Almost like Windows, where it's, no one talks about Windows in terms of the like 5 or 6 digit code name that they apply to updates. They just say, oh, there's like a new quarterly release for Windows is out,
Yeah, and he essentially said to me, no, this is as important than ever. It may not feel like that from the amount we know so far, but he was saying internally, at least, it is now more important than ever for them to still have these big updates. And they pretty much have to decide whether they want to put something into a quarterly drop or if they want to put something into a main drop. And that's one of the big elements for them now and on the Android team. And on the trunk stable development stuff, I also spoke to him a little bit about why the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 7 got those extra OS updates. So in December last year, we got some surprise updates. Both of those phones, Pixel 6 and Pixel 7, and all of their variants, got an extra 2 years of updates on top of the 3 years that they'd already been given, allowing the Pixel 6 to live for another 2 more years, basically. And he was saying that came from the efficiencies that they were able to do through this trunk stable development program. So they found they were able to better apply that back to older products, and that's allowed them to do that. So he said it was a combination of Tensor. There was an element of Tensor there, but I think from what he was saying, it was more important actually. This new trunk stable development process meant that they were able to backport these elements onto those phones, and they went, okay, well, if we can make this happen, then we're going to pull that back to both those devices, and we got a nice little surprise there for those owners.
That's fascinating. One of the biggest surprises of late last year was this change, and it applied to almost everything. I think only the Pixel tablet, which I'm still a little confused about. Did Sameer say anything about why the Pixel tablet was excluded from this change?
No, I should have asked that, shouldn't I? Yeah,
Oh,
I
I
should have
mean,
asked that at that point.
it's okay. I mean, I don't think most people think about the Pixel tablet very much, so I don't know if you are. Sorry to the Pixel tablet fans out there, but yeah, I mean, anything else out of your interview with Sameer?
We spoke very briefly about the idea of moving beyond 7 years of updates. I was essentially asking, does this trunk stable development ever mean that we can move past it? From what he was saying, I don't think that's on the cards anytime soon. I think his quote to me was something along the lines of, we will continue to look into it, but I don't think there's anything in that path. I also don't believe any of this hardware would be able to survive longer than 7 years, if I'm totally honest. I think you're going to be into battery issues and those sort of elements by the time you do get to that. We're still... The Pixel 8 is going to be updated till 2030, so we're still a long way from knowing whether that 7 years of updates is going to be enough. But if you think about it from an iPhone perspective, usually when an iPhone falls out of software updates, that's because it's now old hardware, isn't it, really? So I don't think we're ever going to see them move past that, but they will consider it if it becomes something that's on the cards.
Yeah. 7 years to me is like, I can't imagine using any device for more than 7 years. I don't use laptops for more than 7 years, which I think says more about my spending habits maybe than anything else. But I think 7 might be the very end of the sweet spot in terms of both long-term software support and how is your hardware aging. I think 5 to 7 years is that sweet spot, which they now hit essentially with every Pixel since 2021, because if the Pixel 6 and onward have been elevated to 5 years of support, then that's fantastic to me.
What would the equivalent be if you were to get 7 years of updates on a Pixel? That would be the Pixel 2, or maybe even the Pixel 3.
Oh, like what was expiring now?
Yeah, we're talking very, very early Pixel hardware, aren't we? So, like, again, I don't think those devices would be all that helpful in modern life.
The Pixel 2 was a 2017 release, so 7 years would have been like the end of last year, correct? My math is bad.
Yeah,
yes,
that makes sense.
The end of last year. So imagine if you were still using a Pixel 2 and it got its final like software update like last November. That's what that's going to be like. And look, I liked my Pixel 2 XL. I can't imagine having used that phone through 2024. That would have been terrible. So I mean, and obviously Pixels are much better than the first few generations, which were a little more flawed. I think, especially the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 9 have been kind of rock solid. So yeah, I think it makes sense for those phones to be the first to fall into this 7-year pattern. James, we need another pin, is what I've realized.
We're here. All right. For audio listeners, you're getting a little shaking of a bag. I do not know what this one is meant to be. It's some sort of drawing. It's I think it might be postage stamps.
Oh, it's postage stamps. Yeah, it says BCN on it. It's Barcelona.
It's like, there you go.
Yeah, I love that. That's adorable. I really like the like colors they chose this year. They went with a very like darker, saturated tones. They're fun. I like it. It's great. Go watch the video. It's on YouTube. You can watch it right now. Yeah, those look great. I love those.
Yeah. Very similar as well. I've not seen anything else in this bag that's like to those two, so it's quite odd that both of those have come out so far.
That's funny. That's really funny. James, this week we got Android 15's final feature drop.
16.
No, 15.
Oh, sorry, 15. I'm sorry. I'm still in my
Android 16 brain. You've got your brain in your interview. It's fine. Yeah. James, I think, joined this call. You've been like editing your piece all day, so like I understand why you're living in Android 16. But yeah, no, we got a March 2025 feature drop with modes. It's got satellite messaging. It's got a GoPro style external cam hookup thing. It's a lot. Well, actually, let me ask this first, because this was kind of timed to MWC. Were any of these features demoed at their booth at Mobile World Congress?
Not that I saw. I went through the entire booth, but I didn't see any of these. Most of this was Gemini focused stuff moving, and it was a lot of examples of technology that was already out there. Really, it was a lot of like talking through like translation within Gemini, a bit of circle to search, which obviously we've heard about a lot over the last year or so. More of those sort of demos. So no, there wasn't really anything that was this, and it was an odd scenario where this announcement happened on the second day of the show. So I think it was probably they didn't have the demos out because it hadn't already been announced by that point. Usually we see the announcement happen at the same time as when the booth opens, so a bit of a strange one this year in that way.
Yeah, that is odd. Anything in this list stick out to you that you wanna talk about? Because it's a surprisingly long list. I don't think we have time to hit everything here. There's Pixel Recorder updates. There's Pixel Screenshot updates. Pixel Studio now supports humans, which is a decision that Google made that I I don't know if they should have, but that's there. Yeah. Anything stick out to you?
Can you talk me through the Do Not Disturb mode stuff? If you can't tell, I've not actually read through. I've been too busy MWC.
It's the schedule of time stops when you're at a tech conference.
Yeah, it really does.
And unfortunately, the world keeps going, so it is difficult to keep up with what's happening in the outside. Not to make light of a terrible situation, but it took me an entire 2 days at CES to learn about the LA wildfires. I was so out of the loop, and no one was talking about it. And then I checked the news and it was oh, you don't know about this story that's been going on for 48 hours now? And I was like, no, oh my God, no. And I'm usually pretty dialed into this stuff.
Very, very different vibe, but I didn't learn about the Best Picture winner for about, I didn't learn about Anora winning Best Picture for at least,
I should have been in your
half a day or so.
Your DMs. Yeah, I should have been in there. Yeah, I was there rooting for my guy Sean Baker to win his to set his record, which he did. So
I don't think I've ever told you this before, Will, but I interviewed Sean Baker once back in 2015. I interviewed him for Tangerine, because it was shot on an iPhone.
Shot on an iPhone.
Yeah. Don't go back and read that because it's very early days of my writing. But I interviewed him for that, and I completely forgot about it until about 2 weeks ago, where my friend John Porter from who used to work at The Verge, I was out for dinner with him, and he reminded me in that scenario. He said, "You interviewed that guy once." I was like, "No, I didn't. What are you talking about, John?" And then he was like, "No, you really did. You interviewed the potential Best Picture winner." And then my guy Sean managed to win for Anora.
Wow. That's crazy. I did not know. I mean, I guess you didn't know this, so how would I have known this?
Yeah, forgot all about it.
Yeah, wow, that's nuts. I would love to talk to Sean Baker and ask him many questions about his filmmaking style, because it is so fascinating. But if you haven't seen Anora, it's an excellent film. It's not my favorite of his. I really liked Red Rocket, which is the film he made before this. I don't know if you've seen it, James, but
I haven't seen that or the Florida Project. I need to go back and watch this.
You should. Florida Project also excellent, but Red Rocket is Texas-based uncut gems in terms of the stress that it's putting. It's you're watching a character make a bunch of bad decisions, but with with Sean Baker's style, it's really good. Simon Rex should have been nominated for a Best Actor award for it. It should have been what happened to Mikey Madison, where she won Best Actress. That should have been Simon Rex's Oscar. Anyway, neither here nor there. Go watch Anora. Check out Sean Baker's films. We're going to talk about modes for Do Not Disturb. So basically, this has been in development for a while. I actually think it was in development for an Android 16 feature first, and they've moved it into this feature drop. But essentially, you can set up modes to automatically go into a bedtime mode or a driving mode. One of Google's examples is a relaxation mode, where you are setting specific people who can and cannot interrupt you, apps that can notify you during these specific modes. This is not a new idea. Samsung has had something like this. Apple has had something like this, but it is a much more powerful version of Do Not Disturb than has been on the Pixel in the past. It's kind of an advancement of the schedule system. So I don't know. It's a mild change overall, but it comes with some nice improvements. It's got a very nice quick settings tile. Yeah, so that's kind of what modes is. It's sort of just catching up to how other smartphones talk about these modes, but I think it's the right way to have this language explained to people.
And I like the fact you can build your own as well, that you can properly name it and come up with how you want to play around with it.
Yeah, and I've had good luck with Samsung's. Apple's have never worked particularly well for me, so I'm happy to see all of these other companies doing it right, because I've definitely tried it on iOS devices and still had notifications leak through, which I don't even understand how that happens. But yeah, multimodal Gemini coming to all supported Pixels, including live video and screen sharing with Gemini Live for advanced subscribers. That's if you want to, point your camera at something while using Gemini Live, you can do that now. The Pixel Recorder app is now allowing. I've been kind of waiting for this because I use so many phones. Sometimes I will go to tech events with a Pixel on me purely for the recorder, even though I'm either using another phone or I'm going to pick up like the Motorola Razr 2024. It's like my SIM card's going to go in that when I get the phone from them so I can start using and reviewing it. And with this update, you can now take recordings from other devices and put them into the Pixel Recorder after the fact and have them transcribe it, which is great. It's like a no-brainer. I don't even know how many people this benefits outside of the tech press, but in the same way that right, but like in the same way that we were like, oh, okay, well that now we know why YouTube has summaries. It's like, oh, this was made for 300 people, but like you and I are one of them, or two of them.
Exactly. We're excited about this, and everyone listening to us right now is like, why would I ever need that in that way?
Yeah,
it's I had this exact same thing literally in my interview with Sameer. I'm using an Honor Magic V3 at the moment. Their latest foldable. There's a recorder app on it, but there isn't a recorder with translation or anything like that, with transcription or anything in that form. So I was like, as soon as I sat down, I went, why did I not bring my Pixel for this exact scenario? So as soon as you said this, I was like, cool, I'm excited. But yeah, it's very, very inside baseball.
It is, but you know what? What is the show if not movie reviews and complaining about inside baseball things? That's kind of the feature drop. Like I said, go check out Dallas's coverage of it on the site. It'll be in the show notes. It's a long one. It's a big one, and I think it sets up. I think between this final feature drop and your interview with Sameer, where we learned that Android 16 is coming in June, I feel like we're set up really well for like a larger presence than last year for Android at I/O. Android felt like an afterthought last year. It was like a 2-hour conference. I want to say Android showed up like 95 minutes in and was off stage like 7 minutes later. Like it was like, oh right, our mobile operating system. Well, here are 3 things that are coming to it. All right, see you later. And like, I think that's not going to happen this year. Obviously, I could be proven wrong, but like it feels like they are building up a little bit more to having some bigger Android announcements. Now, I think those will fully be AI based. So if you were hoping that Android would be a little escape from the flood of AI news that hits your RSS feed every day for still using an RSS, I feel pretty confident people listening to the show still use RSS feeds. I don't know if you're going to find that, but I do think it'll have a bigger showing at I/O.
Yeah, I had the exact same thought process as well after my conversation with Sameer. Can't guarantee it, but I feel like they're at least going to say the word Android on stage more. I think if they want to flag this more.
We also got a Google search announcement this week. AI Overviews now powered by Gemini 2.0. I did immediately dunk on AI Overviews on the site after I saw this news because I posted a thread on the website called "Don't Be Fooled, Google's AI Overviews Still Suck." I was maybe in a little bit of a pithy mood yesterday. I Googled mania synonym with T, as in like starts with T. And it told me that a synonym for mania that starts with T is frenzy. The word frenzy. It starts with an F.
Okay.
I don't really think there was a good word, so like maybe that's my own fault. But like I said that in my post. I'm like fine, then tell me there isn't, or don't give me a thing. Like that's fine. When I went to dictionary website, I was looking at the options. I was like, none of these really fit. I was looking for alliteration in case anyone was wondering. I was trying to find a word that would mean what I meant, but start with a T. Anyway, doesn't matter.
You want it to be honest, don't you? You don't want it to act smarter than it actually is and try and come up with something. Like, you want it to just go, no, that is not possible. Maybe you need to look at another source or something like that. Or no, I'm not able to do that this time, rather than come up with something. It's exactly how I feel about AI overviews at the moment. I don't hate the concept, but I find that every single time I read something in an AI overview, because I've had so many fail for me, I now have to go and double check the ones that even are working, because I'm just not, and that doubles the amount of time that I'm spending rather than finding a good source at the top of a Google feed that I was having previously. So it's going to take a little while to get my trust back on AI overviews, I think.
Over the weekend, I was on Sunday, I had to go grocery shopping. I had 3 recipes that I wanted to buy ingredients for, right? I was basically like, oh, okay, I can make these Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then leftovers Monday, Wednesday, Friday, make my life very easy. And I was like, well, I could do what I normally do, copy all of these into a Google Keep list, and then just clear off the ones that I already have. Like I have pepper or salt or whatever. But let me see if like Gemini, if I just give Gemini these links, like, will it make a single shopping list? Because I've certainly used Gemini screen share on Android to be like, move these things to a list, and that works. But I've never just handed it 3 URLs and been like, make a list for me. And I did. And I like looked through the list and it was missing like 2 different things and had messed up one of the other things. And I believe initially didn't include quantities, by the way. It was just like, you need chicken, you need sweet potato. And it's like, how much of any of this? And after messing with it for like genuinely 10 minutes, where I was like, I kept trying to like reprompt it to give me the correct list and it kept apologizing. I was like, this is stupid. I would have been done 7 minutes ago if I had just like copied and pasted this. And so I copied and pasted the links or the lists into Keep and went to the store. Which is like a similar thing I have with like AI overview. It's just it's all about like trust, where it's like, yeah, I could ask it to do this, but I have to like double check this shopping list before I leave the house, and it's not actually saving me any time. And in a similar way, like, to my admittedly silly AI overviews example, just tell me no. Like, AI overviews in particular seems very scared to tell the user that the thing they're looking for doesn't exist or can't be found. So it makes things up like that instead. And I feel like all of these AI chatbots are like scared to tell people that like a thing they're trying to do is not possible or is too difficult for the model to do at this stage. And so therefore we get hallucinations instead that make it impossible to trust the tech. Anyway, this is a bit of a tangent, but Google search is also getting a new AI mode, which is essentially its version of ChatGPT's like search mode. Like, you can bring it up and talk to it like it's a chatbot, but it's leveraging Google search to have like more up-to-date information than what you would get from just like Gemini as the chatbot. For the same reasons I just laid out, would I struggle to imagine using this, especially because it is going to, I've used ChatGPT's search function and I didn't find it particularly trustworthy.
Same.
My experience with Gemini is that it is usually just slightly worse than ChatGPT. They're very similar, but I usually get slightly worse results from Gemini. That might not be true for everybody. So, I might try this in a few months, but I know for a fact right now that if I went and tried AI mode, which, by the way, it's not only, you have to be an AI premium subscriber. So I think you have to be on like the Gemini Advanced plan, the 2 TB, $20 a month plan that you can get for free with a Pixel 9 Pro. And then you still have to go to Labs and opt in. So it is extremely hidden. It is not automatically live for anyone. In that sense, it is very similar to AI overviews when they rolled out for the first time 2 years ago, where for the first year of its life, they weren't even called AI overviews. I forget what they were called. You had to jump through a couple hoops to turn them on every account you wanted them on. It's very similar with this AI mode thing. I am curious to see. I mean, no one is going to turn this on that doesn't want it on right now, but it will obviously come to everybody eventually in the way AI overviews did. And I'll be curious to see how that changes how people search,
Yeah, I'm very, very similar in that way. I've tried the ChatGPT search in a similar way, and it's just not reliable enough for me in that way at the moment. I still need to click through to a site and find the actual source to be certain that I like it. I'm playing around more and more with Perplexity. I find Perplexity really helpful, but even then, I'm using the sources. I am still going through and clicking through to those sources just to make sure. Again, maybe this is the job we're in, and we want to make sure our information is 100% accurate for that. But I think the average person also needs that as well. They want to make sure hallucinations aren't appearing for each of them.
I believe it was The Verge. It was David Pierce at The Verge had quotes from Robbie Stein, a VP of product on the search team. They have found, and I'm going to take them at their word here, that Google has found that people are still clicking through the sources on AI overviews, which gives me hope, I suppose, like in a weird way, right? Like, I'm surprised almost, because Google does not make it particularly easy to see those sources. Like, you really have to want them, I think, even though it's only usually like one click or one tap to open the list of sources, you still have to do that. It's not like they're automatically in your face. I would love to see especially maybe at like I/O, I would love to see more concrete data on how people are using
Mm.
AI overviews and why they think people are clicking on source websites, and therefore how Google is selecting those source websites, because
Mm.
in the past they've been a little wonky. That does at least paint a brighter picture than I think a lot of us had of like what would happen to websites on the internet in a world where everything is just kind of answered by AI when you search something. Now, AI mode takes it to an entirely new level, I would say. Like it will make it feel more like you are communicating with Gemini or ChatGPT, and therefore I think the sources, in my opinion, are even more hidden. You always have to click that
They
little
really are.
like link icon next to every paragraph that is not. I don't even think it's particularly, I don't think it's a good icon for what
Mm.
it's describing. It should just say source to be a little bit more obvious to people who maybe aren't as like technically inclined. Like I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything immediately obvious about a chain icon that makes you think that's the source link. Like I know what that is. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious where this goes. As always, I'm skeptical, but I'm sure we will hear more about this at I/O. So, which is 2.5 months away.
It'd be the focus of the show, wouldn't it? I think it's like,
Certainly
again,
the search
yeah.
part of the show. Yeah, this
Mm.
is in the same way that AI overviews was like 15 or 20 minutes of last year's show. I would be shocked if this was not the same thing
Mm.
this year.
Yeah, definitely.
James, I need a pin. Hit me with a pin.
It's bedtime. Oh, it's a little tennis guy. We've got a challengers one.
There we
Oh no,
go.
it's
That's
badminton.
actually
Sorry, that's badminton.
that
That's
is
a
bad, but I'm gonna stick with Challengers because I do want to say that is my favorite movie of last year. Sorry to Anora.
no.
Challengers wasn't nominated for anything, so
Strange, wouldn't it?
um,
I thought that would have done all right.
I think Luca wanted to put
Mm.
Guadagnino, right?
Queer.
Is his last name?
Yeah,
Wanted
yeah,
to put all of his energy behind promoting Queer, which came out
yeah.
much closer to award season. Also didn't get any awards attention, or at least any Oscars attention.
Mm.
And Challengers, I think, because it was delayed because of the writer's strike, kind of bumped its way out of Oscar season. And it's just
Mm.
in the same way that Dune 2 did not win a particularly large amount of Oscars. Like I think it's just very difficult for a film that comes out in March, that comes out like this time of year, to win a lot of anything, like let alone be nominated. So
Yeah.
this is not about the pin. The pin was nice, by the way, to the audio listeners, but
Yeah, it's just a little badminton guy. He's cute.
we've been going long. Tell me about the gadgets, because like that's
Mm.
why you go to a trade show. Tell me about the gadgets you saw. Taylor Kearns and I helped you kind of pick our awards and write up some of the awards blurbs, but you got time with all of these, so I am curious to see what you thought of everything at the show.
Yeah, almost all of these. There's a couple of small ones that Sanuj, one of our writers, was playing around with. Similar sort of thing to what I was saying earlier, really. MWC is no longer just about the gadgets that are like coming to US audiences. It's usually being used by a lot of the Chinese manufacturers that don't usually sell in the US to then launch their products into a European market. So Xiaomi 15 Ultra, for example, the Honor Pad V9, really, really good products, but you're probably not going to be able to find these in the US at any stage. There were a
Yeah.
couple of exceptions to that, though. Samsung is back at MWC. Yep. Kind of not really admitting that they're back at MWC, and they're not doing a big Galaxy S launch like they used to do back in my glory days of what I was talking about earlier of the 2014 Galaxy S5 launch and those sort of things. But the new Galaxy A series was announced on Saturday to coincide with MWC. Saturday US time, but Barcelona Sunday time. So that's the Galaxy A56, 36, and 26. I've played around with two of those, the two top end models, the 56 and the 36. Go and check out the specs on the site if you're thinking about buying one of these. But I think this is going to be a very good competitor to the Pixel 8a, and whenever a Pixel 9a comes around as well, and obviously the iPhone 16e that was announced a couple of weeks ago. Slightly different market now for the 16e, but an interesting counterpoint. I want to talk a bit more about the A36, though. I think this is the year where, if you're talking in that market, that $100 difference between these two different phones, so the 56 is $500 and the 36 is $400. I think that extra $100, from my very limited time playing around with them, I'm not sure if you need to go for the 56. If you're particularly money conscious there, 45 watt fast charging is now coming to the 36 model. Camera's looking a lot better on the 36 model. Design is very, very similar. A couple of very, very minor tweaks to the design compared to the 56, but it looks really nice. Really consider that if you are looking at one of these phones. I would genuinely consider saving that extra $100 and going for that one. Wait until we fully review these products because they are different chipsets, and we're not certain what the difference will be for that. And it might be what I'm saying here isn't entirely gospel, but I do think it's going to be really competitive in that space this year. And the big news here is the A56 is coming to the US. So last year, the A55, one of Samsung's best phones of last year, didn't launch in the US because they wanted to push US owners towards the Galaxy FE series rather than going for the A series. Samsung's rode back on that this year, and they are now launching the A56, but they're also doing it in a very odd way and not launching it just yet. So I'm based in Europe, and it is coming, I think, end of March for us. I think it's something like March 28th or something like that. There is no release date for the US market at the moment. So this could be months and months before we see it. Hopefully it isn't. Hopefully it's only an extra couple of weeks on top of that. But the fact Samsung's not confident to give us a release date yet, I think may mean that you're going to be waiting a little bit longer for that 56. Again, another reason you might want to consider the 36 because that is launching at the end of March.
Yeah, I was going to say that even has like a Best Buy exclusive like color. Like it's just so funny to see them like go all in on these two cheaper ones that have dates and prices and partnerships, and then it's like, oh, and the like slightly more high end one, yeah, it's it'll be there. Like we'll get there.
I asked some Samsung representatives while I was at the show what happened there, really, why that wasn't coming, and I didn't really get any clear answers there. I'm not sure if they particularly knew, to be honest, and it does just seem strange. I wonder if this was a last minute decision or something like that to bring it to a US market rather than like it's just odd to not get a release date for it not to pair up with these. But yeah. Really consider the 36. 56 is obviously going to be better, but it's $100 more. And then there is the A26, which I can't really speak to yet. I haven't played around with the 26. I wasn't able to find one of those at MWC. I don't think they actually had any at the show. That is $300 and going to be a really, really competitive space for that. And then last year in October, they launched the A16, which is probably going to be their cheapest phone that you can buy on US shores.
It's kind of fascinating how similar these three phones are. Like when you look at Samsung's spec sheet, like how many of these just kind of have lines drawing across all three models where it's like they all have 6.7 inch full HD plus displays. They're all 120 hertz. They're essentially the same weight. Their dimensions are almost identical. Even the camera systems sound very similar across these. There are upgrades as you move up in price, primarily to the ultra wide camera. If I'm just looking at their specs alone, it obviously these main sensors could be different, but they're all 50 megapixel f1.8 autofocus OIS sensors, and like to be that tells me that they're the same sensor when the numbers are identical across the board. So yeah, I mean that $100 jump from A36 to the A56 kind of is mostly just a better ultra wide camera and 2 more gigabytes of RAM, a jump from 6 to 8. But I mean 6 gigabytes of RAM is not an insane amount, but if you are not doing a lot of like on device AI skills, which like this won't have access to a lot of them anyway, like I don't think you will really notice a problem for the most part. Like if you are just buying this to be a phone, as in a way to communicate and browse the internet and listen to music or podcasts or watch videos, like that the A36 sounds like the one to get to me.
Yeah, it's good. I think it's gonna be another good year for mid range. I think it's gonna be another good year in that space. It feels like it's like Samsung coming back with the 50 in the US. I think is going to shake up the market again a little bit in that sort of space, because I know what they were trying to do with pushing people towards the FE, but it was much more expensive there, and it meant that everyone had to default to the 30. Excited to see what this does and hopefully gives Google a bit of competition, which has been owning that mid-range space for the last couple of years.
Absolutely. Not the only mid-range phone we saw. Nothing launched the 3A and the 3A Pro finally after like a month of teasing it, a month of like YouTube videos. They're like, okay, here it is. And it was the exact phones we had seen in a billion leaks and rumors and videos. And did you get to play with them at the show at all?
Weirdly not. So I saw a lot of them. I saw a lot of them because a lot of my tech press friends had them.
Are out. Yes.
So I've seen a lot of them and played with one very, very briefly that someone passed over a table to me at dinner, very, very briefly there. But I did try and find them at the actual show. Nothing is a very, very small brand, and they don't exhibit directly at the show. They don't. I think there were probably a couple of places you could pick up some of these phones, but they don't have like a particular stand or anything in that sort of way because they are still a relatively small brand. But they did. There is an official MWC announcement. But I haven't actually played around with them all that much, so they got an MWC award for us both of these phones, the 3A and the 3A Pro, because Stephen on our team is taking on the reviews for those, and he's playing around with those at the moment. Very, very difficult to buy in the US again, though. They've made this very, very tough to get your hands on one.
Yeah, I was disappointed to see how hidden their warranty is in the US this year, because it's the exact same as it was with the Nothing Phone 2A, which is that if you buy it in the US, you are buying into Nothing's beta program, and therefore Nothing will offer you 14 days of after sale support. Like if you need to return it, if there's a problem, you have 14 days. There is no warranty after that. And that's true again this year. But I was able to like get pretty close to finishing a purchase without seeing that warning. It's possible that like once I enter Paybit data, it pops up and tells me, but it's kind of hidden on their website. And so I do want to like remind people that if you are interested in either of these phones, that you know they are fairly cheap. They're both under the 3A is under 400, the 3A Pro is under 500, but in 3 months, if there's a problem with that phone that would normally be covered under warranty, you are not going to be able to do anything with it. That doesn't mean don't buy it. And also, the other thing, you will have to, if you are on Verizon or AT&T, you will have to contact your carrier with your IMEI number to get whitelisted for 5G support, because they won't do it automatically. I believe T-Mobile is the exception to that. So if you're going to buy it, check bands, check your feelings on the warranty, call your carrier. But we'll have Steven's review soon. But they seem like interesting phones. I don't like the design of the 3A Pro personally. I don't like its big goofy camera module, but otherwise they're nice devices with pretty excellent specs for the price. And to the point where we were just talking about, the A36 is $400, correct, in the US, right?
36, yeah.
36, yeah. So the Nothing Phone 3A, like that phone has 12 gigabytes of RAM and is cheaper. Yeah. So like there are 256 gigabytes of storage. It's got 50-watt charging speed. Like these are impressive devices for the price. It's just you are sacrificing, if you are in the US, you are sacrificing after sale support. So it's a bummer.
There's just too much friction here, isn't there? Like
a little bit.
The devices are great, but it's so hard to justify. Like from our perspective, anyway, it's so hard to justify to our readership and to listeners of this podcast to go and buy one. Really, it's
tough to recommend.
Really tough to recommend in that way. When hopefully they are absolute slam dunk devices, and we end up giving them really positive reviews, so we can say go and spend that money. But
jump through those hoops.
But it's just a shame to see that.
Even like convincing people to check out like OnePlus, which does have support in the US, even though it's not in carrier stores anymore, for example, but it's still in Best Buy and it's got a normal warranty to my knowledge and all that. Even that is like enough of a challenge to tell people like, no, the OnePlus 13 is like a good phone, you should check it out. Like, yeah, nothing has a pretty, I mean, and to be fair, they seem to be aware of that. I feel like these phones are primarily like the Nothing Phone 3A comes in this like beautiful blue color that I think is India exclusive. Nice. So it's unfortunate that like the prettiest one is also locked to the market where they've seen the most success, which makes sense. But I would like it, and I would want it. So
yeah, a couple of other things I just want to shout out. We saw some nice new hardware from Honor, the Honor Pad V9. I've been playing around with a lot. Really, really nice. Again, just a European launch. So you're probably not going to be able to easily buy that in the US. The Tecno Spark Slim.
Yes, I wanted to talk about this.
Yeah, I still can't really get an answer whether this is actually a device that's going to go on sale anywhere. If I'm honest, I've heard conflicting information.
Everywhere I was reading it was it's a concept phone.
But I heard a rumor at the show that it
I agree with you. It was weird. The messaging was weird around it, but I saw enough mention of it being a concept phone that and Tecno is Tecno's thing. Is they every year they have a concept phone to check out that it's possible that this evolves out of the concept phase, but I do not think that this is at least set for a market right now. I think this is showing what they're experimenting with. But we should say it's a very slim. It's a 5.75 millimeter smartphone with a 5200 milliamp per hour battery,
Wow.
which is nuts. So it is a preview of what the S. Did you hold one, James? Actually,
the Tecno. No, I haven't.
yeah.
Sanuj did. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I was curious to see, because it is kind of a preview of both the S25 Edge and whatever the slim iPhone 17 ends up being, presumably Air. And so, yeah, I don't know. I am fascinated by this, and my mood has changed so much on the slim designs when you start talking about silicon battery tech, because I have always been like, I would never want to sacrifice a larger battery to get like a couple millimeters back in my pocket. And then once you start talking about like OnePlus and Tecno and like all of these others, and mostly Chinese brands, like using silicon battery tech that has not really crossed over into the Googles or the Samsungs, although there's rumors there of the world. It's incredible that like the OnePlus 13 has this massive battery in it and yet feels like slimmer than a lot of the other phones I've used. It certainly feels, I don't remember what the exact number is, but its curves help it feel much slimmer than like the S25 Ultra. And yeah, so I don't know. I've kind of turned into like, no, make the phones slimmer. With silicon batteries, like I'm actually okay with that as long as the chassis is rigid enough that it's not going to bend in my pocket. If it's slimmer, you're going to get some weight back. That's great. I'm kind of getting into the trend, but obviously it will depend on how these phones work. And crucially, the S25 Edge is like rumored to have a pretty small battery, so we will see how it goes there.
Yeah, I worry that Samsung's just getting something out to try and get ahead of the iPhone there in that way, rather than doing it this way round, which is get the battery tech down first and then have that. And again, this is likely not actually going to hit the market from Tecno, so this is just them playing around and just showing off where tech can get to, rather than them being able to make a device that is ROI positive for them in that way. That's going to be the main element there. I managed to see the Galaxy S25 Edge, similar sort of thing to what you got at Samsung Unpacked. We can only see it from afar. That probably means that these devices aren't close to being finished yet. I know an April release date is currently rumored for it, so we'll see whether that happens. But they had 14 of them at the show, and they were hanging in the middle of their booth basically. And if you got,
I bet it's the same display. They put that thing in a box and they shipped it from San Jose to Barcelona. Yeah,
and if you got anywhere like within 3 feet of them, a big burly security guard came out of nowhere and rugby tackled you to the floor.
They had the security was like, I didn't get like pushed back or anything because I had a terrible angle, and I think they were like, who cares about this guy? But no, I saw the security guy come up to like 3 or 4 different people, and I was only in that crowd for 3 or 4 minutes tops. It was interesting how much they were like, no, you have to get back. I don't know what would make you think that Samsung is trying to get ahead of an Apple launch. They've never done that before, so I don't know why you would.
And one final thing, another device that I wasn't able to get close to, they had Project Muhan, the Android XR headset from Samsung. Yeah, they had that on display. I was able to get pretty close to that. I reckon I was 2 feet away from that. And I'm hoping to write something on that next week. So hopefully check out the site, and I should have something just very brief on that with some nice photos of it. I really, really.
If you had leaned in a little further, James, you could have seen inside. You could have seen the displays.
Yeah, like it made me genuinely excited though. Actually, I really want to put one of those things on. I hope one day we get to do that.
I'm in the same boat. I've wanted to try a Vision Pro since it came out too. It's just that I'm not willing to either do their silly little demos or pay $3,500, which are the 2 options. I guess the third option is know someone who has purchased a Vision Pro.
Yeah,
but I don't. So like it's
if you're listening, Apple, we would like to try one, please. Probably not going to happen, is it? But
anyway, anything else to shout out, James, from the show?
I think that's the main things. As I say, it's MWC is now much more of a concept show. It's much more of a way for these brands to show off their certain devices. A lot of these phones aren't going to be coming to you as if you're in the US. Some of them are European launches for tech that we've already seen, like the Honors, the Xiaomi's, the Realme's, all of those sort of manufacturers. It's still an interesting place. We aren't getting huge, big announcements from this show, but I think it was a good year for MWC, if I'm honest. Like, again, the Samsung Galaxy A series happening. It probably wasn't the most headline-grabbing year, but I think there was a good, good spread of interesting stuff to play around with. So I think MWC's alive and kicking in that sort of way, and I'm excited to go for my 10th year next year. Mad? How is that? How is that possible?
Are there dates? What are the dates? Because the dates were the reason I didn't go this year. To
slightly later
answer.
in March, I think. I think as I was leaving, there was a
there's always the sign up.
Yeah,
that says, come check out. Oh, see, they haven't put it on the website yet because I forgot the show is technically still going.
Yeah, still going right now. Yeah, I've just come home too early. So
everyone, all the tech has left. The tech press has left. Like there will be a select group of journalists who are there through like maybe tomorrow morning, but for the most part, like everyone I know who was at that show, I believe has flown home. Yeah, whether it was how long is your flight, James? Couple hours?
2 hours.
Yeah. 2 hours. Or if it was, the 10-hour flight from Barcelona to Atlanta that Ben Schoen was texting me about last night before he got hit with delays in Atlanta. I believe he was up for 24 hours, that poor guy. So
talking of Ben, should we do let's do 3 Android pins back to back.
Yeah, let's hit some pins. Let's hit some pins.
We are a juggling guy and a top hat.
Okay. I like it. He's absolutely. He's that's pretty much it. I was going to try to give additional context to the audio listeners. It is just a green bug droid juggling with a top hat.
I'm going right to the bottom of the bag this time. Like we're gonna. Right. I want to find one that I've never seen before. Ooh, cool. Stickers covering him up. But he's motherboard one.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, that's fun. I like that one. I like the color.
He's like
the color was like a nice dark blue. Yeah. I realized again that we have audio listeners. Jesus Christ. So, Jules, can you maybe put screenshots in the description? Maybe that might work.
I don't know what this one is. This is like he's got a flower. Is he Rhodes? That might be like a map.
That might be a map. Yeah, that one's interesting. I can't quite figure out what it's supposed to be. What is the flower? I thought it was a snowflake at first. What is that?
Oh no, yeah, you're right. It's he's icy. Yeah, it's
he's icy. Okay.
Yeah, it's a snowflake.
Yeah, because it's like a light blue. It's an icy blue colored bug droid. I love that.
Yeah, there you go.
I should find mine. They're somewhere in this office. The like 6 or 7 pins I have from a couple of years of MWC. They're somewhere.
As soon as I got home, I showed these to my partner and basically just like showed her the entire bag of them, and instantly her reaction was, "That's cool. What are you going to do with all of those?" And I was like, "I don't know. I've now got 50 plus of these to find somewhere to live."
The 4 like Google branded water bottles on my desk from various Google events where I'm like, I don't want to throw it away. They're nice water bottles, but I can only drink out of so many water bottles. Like, I already have a water bottle. Anyway, whatever. And like, it's never something I want to, first of all, I already have a water bottle whenever I go to these events because I bring it with me on the plane. And then like, I wouldn't want to use it anyway because like, I don't have a place to wash it. Like I do see other, and like, I'm not, no judgment, but like personally, I would want to wash the water bottle first. And like, I can't do that in my hotel room. So I don't know, whatever. Anyway, there's your pins. That's pretty much it for news this week. I want to shout out that YouTube Premium Lite exists in the US now, mostly because we've talked a lot about YouTube Premium on the show, and this is what people have mostly asked for. I do think it's a little more expensive than I would have imagined. It's $8 a month, and that only removes ads from non-music related videos. I assume you can watch it like an album review and it'd be fine. But if it's a song, if it's a music video, like if it's an uploaded album, like I think those will all still have ads because of the licensing deals YouTube has with the record companies, which is always the reason that YouTube Premium was tied to YouTube Music. They just didn't like to talk about it. I would have liked to see, I don't fully understand why like offline downloads and especially background play are limited to full premium. I would like to see for $8 a month. I would like to see those features there, but
gotta keep a reason for premium. Gotta keep a reason.
It's just like this feels like a $5 a month plan. It doesn't feel like an $8 a month plan to me. And I know I'm splitting hairs on the dollar amount here, but like I'm happy it's here. I am a normal premium subscriber. Not that I use YouTube Music. I already said I pay for Apple Music and Spotify. They're just draining. They're all draining my bank account. Part of the job. If you have been complaining about ads or you've been frustrated with the amount of ads or the continuous ad blocking stuff happening with Google and YouTube, like you have this now, and it'll work on all of your devices. When you load up YouTube on your TV, you won't have ads, except you will still have ads in like search. So that's, again, kind of frustrating, where it's like you can't even do that, but whatever. James, what is making you happy this week? I don't know if there's anything non MWC related that's making you happy this week, but also, like, if you want to talk about like a dinner you went to or someone you hung out with, like the floor is yours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Beers and food with all of my lovely tech press friends.
Yeah.
I'll do a really quick niche film recommendation because we've not spoken about films enough on this one. On the plane back from MWC yesterday, I didn't have the energy to write anything, so I decided to watch a film instead while I was on possibly our worst airline. I'm not going to say what the name of that airline is, but
okay, so it was Ryanair.
Yeah, it was Ryanair, and it was.
I heard they're getting rid of paper tickets. I've heard that they're moving.
Yeah,
fully to QR codes.
So yeah,
you can use your watch now, James. You can.
it was Ryanair, and it's almost impossible to write on those flights because the seats are very, very close together, and it's basically a bus in the sky. So I instead watched a film on my foldable phone. I watched Grand Theft Hamlet. Have you heard about Grand Theft Hamlet?
I know it because I have a Mubi subscription right now, but I have not watched it yet. Yeah.
So it's about two British guys in the pandemic who were playing GTA 5 together because they are both actors, and they obviously all the theatres were shut during our lockdowns, and they were playing a lot of Grand Theft Auto Online together from when they were doing that. And they came across, I don't know if for anyone that's listening that has played Grand Theft Auto Online, there's a big theatre in the Hollywood Hills, basically, like a big amphitheatre, big outside theatre. They found that one day and they just started joking around and playing quoting Hamlet on stage and quoting different Shakespeare plays. And then they decided, hey, why not? Let's try and actually put on a version of Hamlet with inside Grand Theft Auto Online. And it's an hour and a half long documentary about how they managed to do it. They hold auditions in the game engine. It's all like none of the film takes place outside of Grand Theft Auto Online. So it's really silly and just really fun. And they're often like, for example, they're holding auditions and then someone comes in and manages to nuke them from orbit and all of those sort of things. I
thought it was. That's not what I thought it was. I thought it was like a straight adaptation of Hamlet in GT. In the like, truly, I'm so much more interested now.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I get it. I know what this will be, and that's not what I thought it was. So yeah, I will. Maybe this weekend I will check that out because, like I said, I have Mubi right now.
I don't really care about like them actually doing Hamlet inside GTA Online. What I care about and what's interesting about that is seeing the way that humans interact on an online gaming service when it's something that's when it's something that's outside. So it's like someone comes across someone like that niche element of like GTA 5 fans that are also into Shakespeare. It's going to be very rare that you find those people, but they managed to find them, and different people they managed to find good actors within Grand Theft Auto Online. It's a really, really odd little thing, and that's the reason it's on Mubi, I think, is because it is so strange in that way. But it's really nicely put together. As I say, it all takes place within GTA Online. Anyone that saw me watching this on this flight probably just thought I was watching walkthroughs of GTA Online elements. It's a good little bit of fun that I'd recommend to everyone.
I have had a pretty busy couple weeks and have not had a ton of time to catch up on stuff. And like a lot of it has been, like Sunday night was dedicated to the Oscars, for example. And I'm not going to recommend people go watch a 4-hour award show that already aired that you can already look up the results to. Although I will say it was a very entertaining broadcast as an award show fan and an Oscars fan. Nice. Conan was great. It was the host that I wanted him to be. It was very fun. It was overall a good show. Kind of just kept moving and didn't totally feel its length. It was nice. But I'm not going to recommend people go watch that, even though I think it's on Hulu maybe. But and James, I told you about this yesterday, but Maddie and I have been watching a lot of like House Hunters again as like wallpaper. HGTV's House Hunters, which of course you can watch on HBO, or sorry, Max, the one to watch, or Discovery Plus if you have a Discovery Plus subscription. And like, it's weird for me to recommend this because obviously it is a show that has literally a billion episodes and like 800 seasons and has been airing since I was 4. in some format, and like it's a weird thing to recommend because you can essentially watch them and like argue with them and be like, this house is terrible, why are you looking at it? Or like, why do you hate this house? It's incredible, because you will have different tastes. For example, neither Maddie or I are open floor plan people. We both like dedicated rooms, but because the last like 8 or 9 years open floor plans have been trendy, almost every episode you click on is like someone looking for an open floor plan with an all white kitchen. Every now and then you will find episodes filled with the weirdest people you've ever seen that are some of the funniest pieces of like entertainment I've ever seen. Like they accidentally looked like, there is this episode, and I couldn't tell you how to find it. Maybe if I can find the like episode details, I'll tell Jules and it'll be in the show notes. There was an episode where this guy and his wife are hunting for a house, and he is concerned about the range of Wi-Fi in the house. This is probably 10 years ago. And he's looking at like larger homes and being like, these old homes are bad for Wi-Fi, and like pounding on walls as a Wi-Fi test. And it's all nonsense, which would be funny enough on its own. But then he also becomes obsessed with building an ice rink in his backyard, being able to walk to the hockey arena downtown. And there's one more that I'm forgetting because this dude was so weird. And I want to, I think room for his dog to play. And I want to preface all of this by saying his wife is like pregnant, and he never brings up his child. His like, the baby he's about to have. It's always about like, but the Wi-Fi though, like we're too far from the arena. It is so fascinating to see these people who are like shopping for like the biggest purchase of their life, and not only like essentially judge their decision making and then think about what you would want for your own life, but also just find people who are like, how do you exist? Like you're like a real person that I could run into on the street, and that's bizarre to me. So yeah, there are also incredibly boring episodes of that show because that is just the way that it will be. But like truly, like some of the hardest I've laughed recently has been at like at this show filled with like, decade old people where you're like, I don't understand. Like the resolution of that Wi-Fi thing is they buy the big house that he thinks will be bad for Wi-Fi, and in the epilogue of the episode, it's him walking around with a tablet while she like holds the router like embarrassed, and he's like, it's working over here too, and then it cuts to him and he's like, the house is great for Wi-Fi, I was totally wrong. It's like, yeah, man, like not even talking about repeaters or whatever, or a mesh network, which this might have been a little too early for, but like, yeah, dude, like you clearly didn't know what you were talking about when you were pounding on walls and being like, it's good for Wi-Fi.
Amazing. I'm really excited. Apparently, season 250 is the next season, so I'm very excited for you to go there. Has there ever been a bigger divide between someone recommending Shakespeare and someone recommending House Hunters, like on this section of the show? I'm not sure if there has been, right?
No, but I kind of like that we both went for things where it's like, this is like a weird piece of like it's strange for me to describe House Hunters as weird, but what you need to do is like look for the episodes with descriptions that make you go like, wait, what? Like, what is up with this? And sometimes that might just be like, you might just want to see like an old charming house, and you find a description that is like, oh, this couple is shopping for charm. And it's like, well, I know I'm going to see some beautiful 100-year-old houses instead of like new builds, which are the worst to look at, in my opinion. And then sometimes you accidentally, there was another episode we watched where this guy was like terrified of ghosts. He kept bringing up how scared he was of ghosts. And I think as a joke, the realtor brought them to a house next to a cemetery. And he's like, okay, I'm not okay with this. And it's really funny. And the ending makes me think that like they were kind of doing a bit, which I don't think about the Wi-Fi guy, but regardless, like at its funniest, at its most unintentionally funny, it feels like watching I Think You Should Leave. Like it's the same kind of humor of like, how are these people like real? Like, why are they acting like this in this situation? That is one of every like probably 1,000 episodes of House Hunters because they make so many of them. But if you can find them, you will have a really good time. That is all I'll say. I've talked too long about this. I promise next week I will have watched more Twin Peaks or Mickey 17 in the theater, and I will be able to talk about a real movie. But that wasn't this week. This week it was, I'm not sitting down till 9 o'clock and I want to watch mindless television. So. That's it.
Love it.
Yeah, and that's the show. James, thank you for I know how exhausted you are. So thank you for coming on to talk about this anyway, especially because this has been a very long episode.
You're very welcome. I'm doing one last pin, and this is very apt after our film conversation. It's the popcorn pin, which is my favorite one.
You gotta.
There he is.
Yeah, audio listeners, it's a standard green bug droid with a bucket of popcorn, which is what I'm going to look like this weekend of watching Mickey 17. Is that when does that come out in the UK, James?
Yeah, Friday. So
oh, nice, awesome.
Sorry,
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, close enough. But it's been so delayed. This movie's supposed to come out over a year ago. So
yeah, I'm excited for that.
Thank you all for listening. Daniel will probably be back next week. Maybe we'll have a guest, maybe not. Maybe it'll be a classic. Daniel and Will hang and we'll talk. We also talk about movies, James. Like you and I, like it's that's what this podcast always devolves into. But James, we will have you back on soon. We should try to make this like maybe like a monthly thing, or at least every other month. Like have you on as the voice of the website and my lovely boss. Don't fire me. Anyway, thank you all for listening. You can email the show at I think it's podcast@androidpolice.com, but if I'm wrong, just go listen to an old episode and figure out what Daniel said there. And we'll be back next week. Until then, have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.